In this video, I'm going to take you through my full tutor analysis, part 2 of the ACCA pre-seen information for the December 2025 exam sitting. That's for the company Levwell Plc. My name is James, and if you'd like access to my exclusive SBL notes you can see above me that have helped students around the world to pass their examination, click the link in the description of this video and you can download a copy yourself. I'm also delighted to say I'm affiliated and associated with Astranti. They offer pre-seen analysis packs and mock examinations based on Levwell Plc. And again, if you click the link in the description, you can check those out down there. But for pure transparency, as always, on the channel, if you were to purchase anything, I'd be entitled to a small percentage, which goes to supporting the YouTube channel. So as always, a massive, huge thank you. If you have any questions, just leave me a comment below. I will get back to you as I know how close the exam is looming. These could be the difference in getting you that 50 plus and getting you over the line to pass your examination. Well, now let's move on to the industry challenges, as you can see on the left-hand side. And this is where we've got a lot to get through in terms of the variety of different areas and the specifics that you need to be aware of and to apply on the exam day. We have intense competition, economic downturn, rising costs just to get us started. As you can see on here, Levwell does this very well about differentiating themselves to attract and retain customers. That, or guests, shall I say, on there. They're individual and unique. So that is a good unique selling point, a good strength from a SWOT analysis perspective. The economic downturn points on here, you should link that into a pestle analysis, all about Estland on there, that leisure guests are more price sensitive. We've already seen that before, and that can link into reduced demand on there. Rising costs that are going to be passed on to the guests and also has an impact on cash flow because of those increased costs, and you've been given areas such as energy costs, renovation, that you should also be referring to. Staffing wise, another major problem if you go down to page 13, staff turnover is up to 39% on there, and on page 12 it's one of the key values for Levwell that this really shouldn't be happening as well. So again, there's a lot of contradictions on there, things for you to discuss, and can overlap with a variety of different theories in the SBL syllabus. Now, in terms of seasonality, you can see again on the left-hand side, we've got Levwell seasonal figures. You can actually access those on page 9. The interesting thing on there, where it talks about peak seasons and demand is high, variable costs, it's just being aware that it's not completely linear as to what is going on in the marketplace, and just understanding the hotel sector itself. That could link into a professional skills mark area for commercial acumen. Revenue management and pricing is another key area about maximising it on there, linking it to occupancy, and I've got on page 6 the yield management software, another key thing for you to refer to. And the leisure guests, as we touched on before, are more price sensitive, so you've got to be super careful in terms of that revenue management. Threats of new business models as well, like Airbnb, so SWOT analysis really comes into it on there. Basically, alternative accommodation options we need to be aware of and to apply on the exam day. Sustainability wise, there are concerns about the environment, but the key bit for your notes here is that in terms of the environment and carbon emissions and linking into if a pestle analysis environmental point was to be mentioned, it's really one of very few areas that it actually comes up, and that's quite a surprise because they like to throw it in the SBL exam. So it's good points mentioning it that it could impact on the demand for certain hotels if they are not environmentally friendly. But have a look through the pre-seen notes on the KPIs and also on the board of directors, that we don't have anyone actually accountable or a KPI identified for the environment on there. We're then told areas such as innovation and business development. Lots of key things about when the customers check in and check out, the guests, what they desire, speed, convenience on there. They've also linked it into an app, so you could refer to that in terms of a pestle analysis point of view. And we're not told if Levwell Plc has this app. So if that was to sort of come up in terms of a technology point, make sure you get that down as well. There is also a unique selling point for competitors on there, that the services and everything from the temperature and the lighting, if they were to use these apps, lots of guests would go, yeah, this is quite nice, quite cool on here. You know, this technology is a real unique selling point that is going to enhance the experience at the hotel. But you've got to think on the other side and go, well, what if the app actually crashed? The capital versus revenue expenditure on there, have they got the resources to make the investments? This is where, coming on to page 5 on the right hand side now, you've got to be thinking about the Chief Operations Officer that is accountable for these areas, potentially also the IT manager mentioned on page 11. Page 12 highlights the risk areas in terms of data and security, because if you're connecting to all these sites, then you've got data security, cyber security they've referred to on there, the personal data. What if this was to be actually released into the wrong hands? And that's why they've put liable to substantial fines, so a legal point there from a pestle analysis point of view. We're not told if Levwell actually uses this yield management software, so make that statement if you're going to refer to it. But it looks at the efficiencies using the algorithms and AI technology to basically say, well, based on the historical information, it all sounds positive here, and looking at competitors' prices, the market conditions, optimizing revenue versus occupancy, and that is a real SWOT analysis opportunity there, basically getting more money for what we've already got, because there is room at the hotels for greater occupancy. You'll see on page 13. We're also told about a sale and leaseback option on here. This will improve the cash flow industry issues on there, and you've got to be aware of the details as to who owns the ownership of the hotel, the logistics of it. You need to understand and consider all the elements and the impact of the financial statements and business strategy, well, with the flexibility of if they were to actually lease it for a period, repurchase it, actually say we don't want the building anymore. It's a short-term cash flow fix, but something you've definitely got to wrap your head around. I think if they were to test that, that would really put a lot of students off. It would waste a lot of time because they'd probably have to go back and read that part of the pre-C materials. So do not underestimate it. Very technical stuff on there. The industry success factors, note down there the 4 points I've highlighted: the behaviours, expectations, competitive pressures, and developing technologies. Those are the detailed factors that influence success, and you have to be aware of those, and the staff are the key stakeholders who are going to implement that. So very important phrase, that the most important underlying factor which contributes to a hotel success is the guest experience. So in other words, on the exam day, if anything comes up that impacts on the guest experience, which it will do, refer back to that in terms of being an industry success factor, and the market is going to love you for it. There are also a number of supporting factors, like we've touched on before: the facilities, quality, security. Consider all these factors collectively, but relay it back to that guest overall experience as to, are they going to book, are they going to rebook again, and would they maybe recommend it to their friends and family? More generally, they've also talked about the branding, effective marketing, communication on there. To be honest with you, we're not really given much about marketing and the details provided. We're told about leisure guests being more price sensitive. The only thing that links into that is the Visit Estland actual body that attracts guests on there, and therefore I've also linked it down to some SWOT analysis points at the bottom that you can get stuck into, and you can see on there about when they're established, hotels closing down, opportunities of expansion, and threats of losing staff. Now, coming on to the next page, we have the key performance indicators on there: occupancy rates, average daily rates, revenue per available room, average length of stay, guest satisfaction, and employee turnover. Now, for my notes, you'll see the little question marks. That means that on page 13, we're not actually given a graph for those two areas. So that's for the average daily rate and for the average length of stay. Could be an element they could put at you on the exam day just to be aware of, but it's all about measuring and monitoring performance. Those key two words up at the top. And also, we're not given a KPI for any ESG factors, so the environment, social, or governance factors on there. Make sure you're aware of some of the key phrases. In the occupancy rate, the average annual occupancy rate is about 70%, and it's considered good for hotels in Estland. Now, if you look down on page 13, you originally look at it and go, Levwell's getting 77%. Oh, they've got 23%, occupancy completely free. They're well above the industry average, doing really, really well. And then the higher the better in terms of the revenue available per room. So key thing to get down there. Guest satisfaction is looking good, but the employee turnover is the real risky one. And the employees are so critical to any business. That's why we want it to be as low as possible. But unfortunately, it's at 39%. Now, in terms of the industry body, you can see on the left-hand side, there is no specific industry body for the hotel sector in Estland. However, there is that Visit Estland acts again as the industry body for the tourism industry as a whole. I think you'll be able to apply that Visit Estland on the exam day. Make sure you get it down and what they do about marketing internationally, quality control, reliable indicator, and what a customer or a guest would actually expect in terms of facilities and services. It could link into actually what if Levwell was to be reduced from a 4-star to a 3. I've also put on there some other models. So you've got Johnson, Scholes and Whittington, Assos Matrix, 6 Capitals on there. Plenty for you to get your teeth stuck into, and the ones that I think are going to be more likely to be tested versus others. But if you downloaded the notes, feel free to check those out and apply it in your actual analysis and revision. Lastly, we're going to come on to, for this section, we've got Levwell, the overview. Now, do not overestimate the importance of part 3 on here for the company background. Founded 40 years ago, high quality hotel experience, guests and employees are felt respected and appreciated. Not sure about that with the staff turnover being so high, but it's an established organisation of hotel chains, bespoke experience, high standards. No non-guests are actually allowed into the hotels for using the bar and the restaurants. And we've got a keynote here that the majority of guests are leisure guests who stay at Levwell. Levwell is also a listed organisation on there. Really key point to get your head around that 80% of the shares are held by institutional investors. So a publicly owned company, shares are easily tradable for it. And Levwell uses an owner-managed business model. International opportunities possible as they only operate in Estland on there. So a structural change opportunity, maybe from a SWOT analysis, could be applied. But again, it's just understanding the details on here is going to be critical for your exam success. The next bit is linking into the company growth. So to date, Levwell has grown organically, not taking on debt and opening new hotels itself. Rather than acquiring hotel businesses, it continually looks for opportunities to increase the number of hotels. So looking at bespoke areas that you kind of think the type of guests that they attract, they would like to stay there themselves. We're not provided in terms of with the name of the business development manager. Definitely worth putting it down about in terms of identifying and evaluating the potential sites, the different guest demands, factors on there, the local area. And in terms of competition, really key for you to get your head around, and I could have touched on this a bit more earlier, that the hotels that Levwell actually own and operate are rural or coastal rather than actually being in a sort of city centre. So again, maybe they could change the strategy on there, but as we've seen before, they're doing pretty well with the limited amount of hotels, only 35 of them, and they've only got 80 guest rooms per hotel. But in terms of occupancy rate, they're higher than the average. They're getting good average daily rates on there. Their margins are higher than the industry as well from the operating profit margin. So a lot of good positive strengths from a SWOT analysis perspective. Despite Levwell's overall aim to continue growing, it closed down 2 hotels 7 years ago because they were performing poorly and were no longer considered profitable. So again, when you read it through, first of all, you kind of go, is that a SWOT analysis weakness? I'm sure I could move it around from there. But when you read through the whole pre-C notes, you kind of go, that was a really good decision from the board structure. It wasn't a case of them just wanting to hold on to it. They weren't clearly profitable. It happened 7 years ago. And as you can see here, it closed 2 hotels 7 years ago. They've not done anything in recent times that we're told about. So I'd actually have it down it's quite a positive thing. They're actually going through, being really specific in what the guests are looking for and delivering it. Now, if we look at the board structure, we're given 5 executive directors, 5 non-executive directors, so that is the correct board structure in terms of a listed company, of a minimum of 50% NEDs on there. As we said, Levwell is a publicly traded organisation, with the majority of the ownership being 80% controlled by big financial institutions. So that's where you've got the likes of pension funds rather than individual members of the public on there. And the key thing on here for the board structure and SBL exams is they love to give you names in the SBL exam. But for this pre-C materials, we're not given any names. So I can kind of think that on the exam day, you might get one name for one of the different areas. It's good to see we've got 4 subcommittees on there, but we're not told who's in charge of what on there. No clear direction in terms of who covers any ESG factors. So plenty to just keep you on your toes from a board structure perspective, especially if you might get a question to apply some of the actual models on there or theories that link into strategy, both short term and long term on there. So that's really critical in what you need to be aware of. Well, that nicely brings us to a close of part 2. I hope you've enjoyed the videos and series so far, so be sure to give it a massive like and subscribe to the channel. If you would like a copy of my exclusive notes to download yourself, it's going to save you a lot of time. It took me a long time to do them, but you can click the link in the description and get a copy yourself, along with checking out those Astranti notes. The mock papers are definitely going to help you out, along with the pre-scene analysis pack. So what we're going to do now is I'll see you on the other side for part 3, and thank you very much.